Schwab Advisor Services is proud to support the RIA Edge podcast and equally proud to support independent financial advisors like you. In a challenging year, how did 68% of firms surveyed in Schwab's RIA benchmarking study meet or exceed their new client goals? By following key success factors such as leveraging new technology, adapting strategies to win new business and stay connected with their clients, while also attracting and developing the right talent. The Schwab RIA benchmarking study is just one of many ways they provide you with the insights and resources needed to succeed and grow. Get the full picture at advisorservices.schwab.com. Hello and welcome to the RIA Edge podcast. I'm Mark Bruno, the Managing Director of the Wealth Management Group at Informa, and I am thrilled to have our guest here who has somewhat quietly built one of the largest and most influential RIA firms in the business. I'm pleased to introduce our audience to Chris Kerckhoff, who is the president and CEO of Plancorp. Chris, thank you so much for being here today. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mark. I look forward to it.
So as all of our listeners know, RIA Edge is really designed to talk about growth, not accidental or incidental growth, but really intentional growth. And I think you have one of, but possibly the best growth stories in the RIA industry. At now roughly $6 billion in assets under management, I've from a distance seen you on a number of lists, rankings, and award programs that recognize all the great things that Plancorp has done to establish its position in the market. But I don't know enough about the history and the story. I know you started out relatively small, and I know that you've been there for a while, but I don't know everything that you needed to do to get where you are today. So before we get into some of the specifics, would you mind just giving a brief overview of Plancorp, way you're structured, number of employees you have, and also just some context on your role and how long you've been with the firm during its journey?
Sure, absolutely. So I think it's always helpful to have some historical context. Plancorp, we're pretty proud of the fact we were started in 1983 by Jeff Buckner, who was our founder. And we were one of the first, as best we can tell, fee-only financial advisory firms in the country. And, the idea was it's become commonplace now, but, back then having a fee-only company that was giving advice and not selling product was very unique. So Jeff, in fact, just did financial planning for the first 8 to 9 years of the business. And it wasn't until the early 90s that he started taking discretionary management of assets on behalf of clients as no-load products started to become readily available. So fast forward a few years from there, I joined the firm in 1997 at the ripe age of 21, right out of school. There were 5 of us here at the time, about 185 million under management. And so the world looked quite different then than what it looks like today. But, we were very fortunate over time to continue to attract great people to come work at Plancorp, which helped us attract, great clients. And we've always been very, very focused on just delivering as much value as we can to the end client in that objective fiduciary lens. And then just trying to attract great people to help us continue to grow and focusing on how do we attract them? How do we train them? How do we develop them? And with the idea towards, really growing something that's bigger than any of us individually. That's even how we've structured the company. So Plancorp in many ways is unique, we feel, but one of the ways we're unique is we don't have books of business. So I've been here almost 25 years now. I don't have a book of my clients. No advisor at Plancorp has a book of their clients. We all operate as a team. We people with different areas of expertise. We want to make sure that clients have full access to any of those folks, depending on what needs they have at that particular time. So we feel like that's really how we design the firm to make most helpful to clients and how we can drive the most value to clients over time. So then kind of fast forward again to 2010, Jeff Buckner, Steve Frank, and Larry LeGrand, the then owners of Plancorp, wanted to start down a succession path. And they decided after talking to a number of outside players to move forward with an internal succession plan. And I was the first of the next generation of shareholders in June of 2010. And I'm happy to say now, as of the end of 2021, we just completed the final buyout of Jeff, Steve, and Larry's interests. We now have 20 employee shareholders. So pretty excited that we've started this new chapter. The past chapters have all been excellent as well. A lot of growth has happened, as you mentioned there, that I know we're going to spend some time on today. But it's been a great, fun ride. But in many ways, I feel like we're kind of just getting started here in terms of what's to come.
Sure. And I can certainly understand, the way you've talked about the succession progression, if you will, why and how this might feel like a new beginning or a 2.0 or maybe even a 3.0. And I'm excited to learn a little bit more about how having that level of sort of equity ownership distributed across the firm can actually contribute to your future growth. But before we do that, I just want to settle on one thing so our audience and we all have a good understanding of who is the core client or client type for Plancorp. And I know you serve institutions as well, but if you wouldn't mind just giving us an overview and a profile for your core clients, that would be very helpful as well.
Yeah, sure. So we're really humbled to be able to serve about 1,500 client households today. And our average client is somewhere right around that $4 to $5 million under management. Now, averages, as we all know, obscure maybe the typical, because also in those numbers, we do have a multifamily office practice where the average net worth is, well over $100 million for most of those families. So our typical client, I would say, is somebody who is in the stage where they're starting to build significant wealth and they feel like their situation has, from a financial standpoint, has become more complex and they really need some comprehensive guidance. We always like to say we want to be the first phone call for anything financial that a client might think of. So, yeah, that's our typical client. They break down generally into corporate executives and business owners.
Got it. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And now, focusing a little bit more on your growth, being at $6 billion in assets and having really some of the most significant growth in the industry overall. I'm curious, what's contributed to that. We've seen lots of firms that have grown very significantly and very quickly by just doing a number of acquisitions, but I don't think that's the Plancorp story here. So if you wouldn't mind, can you maybe identify some of the top 2 or 3 things that have contributed to your growth over the last decade or so?
Sure. So it starts with, as I said before, really being focused on delivering value to the clients. And like I said, even how we've organized the firm is really with that lens on first and foremost. And so client, referrals have been the core driver of most of our growth. We also have just embedded in our culture this focus on continuous improvement, even like a dedication to continuous improvement. So I'm a big fan and love the book Atomic Habits, if you're familiar with that one, by James Clear. Yeah. And this idea that if you just make incremental improvements over time, that compound impact just is magnificent. And so that's really been the story of Plancorp, is being intentional about the fact that we all have a responsibility here to contribute to growth. Our view on client service and how we show up to clients and deliver value is really one where client referrals are, to me, the best proof point that we're truly exceeding client expectations. I mean, you can send out, and I'm not saying this in a demeaning fashion, you can send out polls, you can get surveys and information back. But at the end of the day, unless you're getting clients who are actively referring you to their friends, family, their network, I would challenge people to ask, are they really delivering the type of value that is impacting clients' lives? So that's one of the things we've just been very open with our entire team about, that we don't need everybody out there networking like crazy and trying to be a rainmaker. We have people who are definitely in that rainmaker category, but we do need everyone delivering the type of client experience that's going to produce those raving fans who are going to go out there and help introduce us to more people that we can help. And then the last thing I would say is this happened in 2011, pretty early on in me being named president of the firm, just an idea that we really needed to have someone in the role in charge of driving growth, that without some accountability there, you can talk about it all you want, but until you start to measure what's creating the growth, until you start to measure the growth itself in meaningful ways in real time and start holding people to some accountability, then the growth is unlikely to just manifest itself.
And what is just out of curiosity, what is the title or what is that role specifically within the organization? I've heard a little bit more from some other firms that we've had on RIA Edge about these types of positions, but be curious to get a sense for how it's positioned within your firm.
Sure. At Plancorp, it's the head of new business development. So it's,
Okay.
it's the person that's charged with that. And it is someone who wears multiple hats here. So we're still a nimble enough organization. There's still people who are wearing multiple hats here, but yeah, that's the role that, for us.
But you have a dedicated owner. Yeah. And I think, we've heard a couple of others. There was an interview we did recently. We were talking about the emergence of this chief growth officer, where they have lots of different responsibilities. They're involved in M&A as well. So it's not necessarily as focused as the role that you have, but it's good to hear and it's good to see because it just goes to show how intentional some of the best firms in the industry are becoming and where the responsibility lives within the organization. On the referral side, just to ask a couple of specific follow-up questions.
Sure.
Do you have a formal referral policy in place? And if you do, what does that look like? And I ask because there are some firms that think they do, but it may just be something in their email signature that suggests, if you're happy with the service here, please recommend us to a friend. But I get the sense if that's what's been really your lifeline or lifeblood, I should say, that you have a more structured process around that.
Yeah, so I have to acknowledge Dan Allison here, who I don't know if you know Dan, but we've worked with him a number of times to come in and help coach our people on how to just have a respectful conversation. It's about feedback and opening yourself up to feedback with the client, and then having a very honest conversation around the fact that we grow from referrals, and we would love to talk to anyone, and just asking for referrals is really the truth. Most people don't ask. Again, I'm kind of stealing Dan's lines here, but it's more people just say, yeah, let us know if we can help. And it's instead of saying, do you know anyone that could use our help? Those are two very different things. And because a question causes people more often than not to actually think about it. Whereas if you just make a statement, people go, oh, sure. And it's just out of sight, out of mind then. So just really getting intentional about asking and letting clients know that you do want to grow. And we're fortunate that we don't need growth for a particular earnings call or anything like that, or answering to some other shareholder that's out there. We need to grow because growth is what helps us continue to attract the best talent to help service our clients and to be able to retain them and allow for, a successful career here. That's the reason for our growth.
That's helpful, and I appreciate it. And I also would just love to get a sense, I look at the growth of a lot of RIA firms I've seen for years, anywhere from half to 2/3 of the net new assets could come from referrals. The other parts, though, whether it's dedicated business development, marketing at a broader level, we're seeing some sort of progress in certain areas, but it's been pretty flat or stable, if you will. How do you actually think about the relationship between marketing, business development, and referrals?
It's a great question, and something we're starting year 3 of really ramping up marketing efforts, and we've definitely seen some results from that last year in particular. So I think there's real opportunity for us to continue to explore and expand that. But we're always very careful as well to stay true to our brand and our values and our culture. And so we're taking it slowly because we want to make sure that it's in line with who we are and what we're about. But I do think that as time moves on here, right? I mean, most people, when they think they need some help or they want to talk to an advisor, they're either going to talk to a trusted advisor, like an attorney or CPA. They're going to talk to friends and family, or they're going to go out and Google firms on the internet, right? And so you're trying to make sure you're showing up for those people who are, first and foremost going online to do a search. We want to make sure we're present there and that we're helpful in the conversation and make sure that people have a good sense of who we are, so we're attracting the right clients that we can deliver value to.
And I can certainly appreciate the way you're thinking about it. That's one of the interesting dynamics of this space. I think wealth management firms in general can get a hard time for not being, quote, great marketers. And in a lot of ways, growth has come from one-to-one referrals, like you've talked about before. But from a marketing perspective, you also have a really well-defined client type that you want to be working with. So getting on a radio show, right, or doing your own podcast like this might get you attention, but it might not get you meaningful engagement with the types of people that you want to be talking to. So at a minimum, you just mentioned the Google search piece. That's the first thing everybody does when they hear your name or they hear the company's name. So you have to obviously make sure that you're clearly articulating who you are, what you do that is unique, and ultimately why they want to reach out to you. Are there any lessons from a marketing perspective that you might share with our audience who might be struggling to try and figure out what it is that they need to do to make sure that they're really representing themselves in the right way?
I think the lesson is that it takes more time than you would like it to take. It takes more dollars than you'd like it to take. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest learning is to just do your best to focus on measuring what's working, what's not working. And if to the extent you're going to, everybody, I feel like maybe I'm just, maybe we're the only ones, but I feel like everybody fails in marketing at some level. So, I mean, like go through those fails, you'll just fail quickly and learn and move on, and then be honest about what your cost of acquisition is for, the clients that you're able to attract via marketing. Because at the end of the day, the question really does become, is it worth it for all firms to do marketing? And I don't really actually know the answer to that. I feel like I have a pretty good opinion for Plancorp that it's worth it, but I can't sit here and say for every firm they should be out there spending the money that it takes and the time it takes to do that. I don't know the answer. I think some people are really gifted at marketing. I'm not one of those people, by the way. Like if I were running my own firm, by myself as a solo practitioner, marketing would not really be on my list of things to do because it's just not a natural talent. But I think, for some people it is. And, I think that's great. For larger firms, marketing becomes this, its own team that you've got dedicated inside and maybe some outside vendors. It becomes a budget line item, right? That you're determining what the return on that investment is. But I think at a high level, it's just making sure you're really measuring what's working, what's not, move on from what's not working, and then continue to just keep an eye on what it's really costing you to acquire contacts and clients. I mean, it's that measurement to making sure you're, again, back to continuous improvement, just continuing to see the trend lines, over time improve and determining whether or not, that's worth your time and efforts, or if your efforts are better spent elsewhere.
Spoken like a true financial advisor. If your investment isn't producing a return or the return you want, it's time to move on. But no, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And I do want to shift gears a little bit to talk about, we've discussed the organic growth side of things, but just the inorganic growth, whether it's M&A or just the acquisition and recruiting of talent that has aided your growth. So can you just give a little bit of an overview and maybe some background on how any of those inorganic efforts have contributed to your growth most significantly?
Sure. We've had very little inorganic growth. And by the way of M&A, we have acquired a firm in the past. It was more of a acquisition hire kind of combo. Firm with about 110 million under management. Went very well. It's been great that, the owner of that firm is still with us, still a partner, shareholder here at Plancorp, valuable member of the team. And so it's interesting that went so well that we haven't done one since. That was in 2015, if I'm getting the year right. It's not that we haven't had a number of conversations, but I've spent time on M&A. We've got a pretty focused strategy on M&A, but I describe it as, we're looking for needles in a haystack. And I think time is better spent doing other things than sorting through the haystack. When, people approach us or when we get introductions or kind of almost stumble into conversations, we take them seriously. And we definitely have kind of a process that we follow. We got, reasonably deep into some conversations last year with a firm But at the end of the day, culture is everything. Obviously, that's like a broken record out there when you talk about M&A. But for us, it's really critical that we're doing it for the right reason. And we are at the core of everything else. We put the clients first, and then our team is very collaborative. And I've described this many times as a teaching hospital, right? We have to, teach our young people and be constant mentors, give them feedback directly. That's how they grow. That's how they get better. And if somebody's not up for that, and there's plenty of folks who aren't, then we're just not a great fit. And, there's other great companies, many of whom I know well, that are great spots for people looking to be acquired. And I'm happy to point people in that direction. But yeah, so I don't want to give the impression we're not open to M&A. I get very excited about that. But it really is, it has to be done for the right reason. It has to be really a perfect fit for us because we don't need to do M&A from our perspective. So I think it's an opportunity because there are advisors who I've talked to. And one of the first things I say is, you can do this. You can grow your own firm. You can be very successful. I'd be a hypocrite if I said otherwise, right? I've been through that journey. And if I can do it, a lot of other people can do it. But, if your passion is working with clients, the reality is, growing your own firm means you're going to, at some point in your career, likely spend less and less time working with clients and more time working on the business. And if that's not the path you want to take, then, joining a firm, is going to be a route that's very much worth exploring. So, that and the fact that as the industry, the independent RIA space has evolved, I think it is challenging when you think about a single advisor developing a niche practice and a value proposition. That's hard enough in and of itself, but it's doable, right? But then you think about, okay, if that advisor brings on more advisors and they grow, what differentiates that next billion-dollar firm from all of the current billion-dollar firms that are out there? That's, I think, where the interesting question arises. I'm not saying there aren't ways to differentiate it at all. I'm not trying to be a naysayer. I'm just saying that is kind of, it's a more difficult challenge, just to be honest. I think about 10 years ago or 15 years ago, there weren't that many billion-dollar firms. So just getting to a certain size in and of itself was a differentiator. Now, you're talking about some of the independent RIAs are over 100 billion in assets. I mean, so, that size is not a differentiator anymore. It opens up some opportunities to do some different things and grow in different ways. But so I think the challenge is just different. So sorry, I feel like I maybe got off on a tangent there. But.
No, I think that's actually great to hear because there's so much attention paid to M&A in this space, especially you look over the last several years and you've seen how much merger and acquisition activity there's been in the RIA space. And there are a number of reasons for that, but it's interesting to get the perspective of a firm that has not necessarily directly participated in that or isn't prioritizing it, at least as a way to drive growth. And I could certainly appreciate when you went back and talked about the transition from the original founder, you went with an internal transaction. And maybe it suggests that it's in your DNA, right? To keep it in the family.
I definitely have a bias. Yeah.
And I am actually curious. I wanted to come back to it because I'd like to learn a little bit more just about the team and the structure and how that's contributed to growth. Since you started to bring partners on, and you said you have about 22 employees that are equity owners now, is that correct?
20 employee owners.
20. Okay. Sorry. How have you seen things change, whether it's the culture or just the inclination to contribute to the future Plancorp's growth? How have you seen changes since that program was implemented and started to bring more and more people into the mix?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for us, it's been huge in terms of, I first think about the reaction that we got from clients when back in 2010, we announced the beginning of the succession plan. The response we got from clients was overwhelmingly positive, and it was interesting just to hear from so many clients that they had been waiting to hear, like, well, what is the plan, right? I mean, one thing we all know is everybody gets older. So it's like, this is not a secret that everyone's aging. And so as our, founding members were getting older, it was on our clients' minds. And it's like the polite thing not to ask for most clients, I guess. So that was a great response. So that's number one, is the engagement we got with our clients in the conversation was huge. But the other thing is we've continued to bring on more owners, is the level of engagement and alignment amongst the ownership group here is exceptionally high. I think, knowing you're all driving towards a common goal and, sharing this common vision, there's just untold benefits to it. So, I think the highest level, it's the alignment, it's the energy that comes from that. Those would be the top things that I would point to.
Well, that's great. I mean, everybody has a piece of it, right? Quite literally, sure. And is rowing in the right direction, or rowing in the same direction, I should say. And before we just move on from that, I should also ask a little bit about, obviously, we're in the news last year, in the summer, with the Sinosure Group making a direct equity investment in Plancorp. Could you just provide a little bit more color there? And more specifically, what does having a partnership like that do for Plancorp and Plancorp's growth potential?
Sure. Well, Sinosure has been a great, partner. We've actually been involved with them in some level since 2017. And so they've been just fantastic to work with. For us, the biggest benefit that's come from having outside capital, and they're mostly a family office. I mean, they're kind of pivoting a bit to private equity, but they're patient long-term capital, which is what we're looking for in a capital partner. And it's access for us to be able to complete the succession plan, more gracefully, I'll say, and certainly with less debt. And somebody who's also a thought leader in the marketplace around M&A. Again, even though it's not core to our strategy, it's something we do think, if I look out over the next, 3, 5, 10 years, it's something we're going to be more heavily involved with as the industry continues to consolidate. There's no question it's going to play a role. So having a group of folks that two of Sinosure partners sit on our board and having their insights and wisdom just around M&A and, on managing a successful growing company has been very, very valuable. Yeah.
And they're also obviously familiar with the space, invested in some other firms, and just having that perspective into how another company, right, different region, different size, different clients, how they may be dealing with challenges and opportunities, has to be very valuable to have that outside perspective as well. So, and you did mention M&A potentially as a future growth driver. That's really where I just wanted to end the conversation here today, is just looking ahead a bit. As you think about and evaluate some of the most significant opportunities for Plancorp to continue to grow over the next several years, where do you see the most and the best opportunities?
Well, I continue to think, we sit in a very fortunate seat, and this is true of all independent RIAs, especially on the fee-only side of the coin. There are so many people that still truly need our help. And, so we're very fortunate to wake up every day and to be in a business where we are truly helping people that need it. And that's a big opportunity that's out there for all of us. So I think client referrals are going to continue to be a driver of growth for us. I think continuing to attract great talent, which we've been very fortunate to do by kind of staying true to who we are and what we're about, is going to be another driver of growth. I mean, at the end of the day, it's our people that drive the growth as much as anything else. I do think, we touched on digital marketing. I think that's going to expand. We all know everyone's spending more and more time, on mobile devices, on different social media platforms. We've got to show up there. And I think as we do, we will continue to see some acceleration of growth there. I think M&A will, like I mentioned, I think it's going to play a larger role for our organization. Probably more, we're not looking to get into big acquisitions, but just making sure we're a spot where, as an advisor grows in their own practice, if they reach that ceiling of complexity, or they've decided, their passion really rests in servicing clients and bringing on new clients, and they don't want to manage a company, that's just not what they're passionate about. I think we're a great landing spot for them where they can continue to play a pivotal role in leadership and being a critical component of a company. We're of a nice size, but we're not at a size where, the next new person, the next new owner, they're important to us. They're really, really critically important to us. And I know that every person is important to every organization, but as you get bigger, the next, if you're at 50 billion or 100 billion, the next acquisition, if you've done 20 of them in a year, they look different. It feels different. And I'm not saying it's bad or good. It's just different. And so I think we will show up as one of those spots that, for the right firm where there's good alignment, it makes sense. The last driver of growth for us, we have a sister firm that we've got a strategic partnership with, BrightPlan, that we're really excited about. We've helped get them launched since 2017, and they're focused on financial wellness as an employee benefit. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a huge space to play a role in delivering, financial advice to more people with a fiduciary mindset is just a really exciting project to be involved with at any level. And for some of the executives at those companies that want to have a dedicated human advisor, we think we have an opportunity to play a role for them and be a good spot to, again, deliver tremendous value because, through our relationship with BrightPlan, we know those company benefits inside and out. And so we've had success over the years and have a number of clients that are concentrated in different companies where we just really get to know all of the different benefit plans, the comp plans, the equity comp plans, get to know the HR teams well. And, there's a lot of complexity that happens from a company benefit standpoint, and we can be, a great solution for those folks. So I think that's another opportunity for growth. We hadn't talked about it yet today, but as I look forward, I think there's tremendous excitement, I know, from being able to help a broader part of the population as an employee benefit and to play some role there. And then, for those people who have more of a complex situation, for Plancorp to be the human advisory solution for them.
I think it's a great note to end on, and we'll actually have to have you come back on. We could probably do an entire podcast about the opportunities with wellness. We talked about it quite a bit, just the convergence of retirement plan advice, benefits, and wealth management. And there's a huge need, and we know that it's not decreasing anytime soon. And sometimes it's just about connecting the dots. So I appreciate you bringing that up, and we'll have to schedule a part 2, and we'll give you a year good. So we can come back and benchmark it, as you probably already are. But Chris, thank you so much for taking time to sit with me here today and share a little bit more about the growth story for Plancorp, and congrats on all the success.
I appreciate it, Mark. Thank you very much.
Again, thank you to our listeners for joining. And we are very, very grateful to Chris and the Plancorp team for sharing time, thoughts, and perspective on their growth strategies. On behalf of the wealth management group here at Informa, again, I'm Mark Bruno. Thank you for joining us, Chris. Thank you to everybody for joining us again here today. And we look forward to having you back on another episode of RIA Edge soon. Take care. Schwab Advisor Services is proud to support the RIA Edge podcast and equally proud to support independent financial advisors like you. In a challenging year, how did 68% of firms surveyed in Schwab's RIA benchmarking study meet or exceed their new client goals? By following key success factors such as leveraging new technology, adapting strategies to win new business and stay connected with their clients, while also attracting and developing the right talent. The Schwab RIA benchmarking study is just one of many ways they provide you with the insights and resources needed to succeed and grow. Get the full picture at advisorservices.schwab.com.